The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hey, the vibes are slipping. I think it's time to bring out the Velveeta shells and cheese. The holidays are a time to go all in on indulgence. Headline your meals with the rich, creamy meltiness of Velveeta shells and cheese and satisfy your holiday cravings like no other. Bring that main course energy to your side dish. Celebrate extra with Velveeta these holidays.
The Carpenter's son's testifying you can't see him, and Sisu's getting wicked on the road to revenge. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Adam Ball, and this is Off Screen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom.
Groovy.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Off Screen. I'm just going to say one thing to start the podcast this week, Van, and that is if I do sound echoey, please forgive me. I have literally just moved home and I am in my new large dining room at the moment recording this. My studio isn't finished and there's nothing really in here, so it sounds like I'm in the Albert Hall.
Well, to be fair, the fact that you've been moving house is actually going to tie into one of our releases this week. I'm going to apologise as well because I've just recovered from the flu, so my voice isn't quite back yet. So you're echoey, I'm coarse. So we're a right pair this week, you and I, Mr. Ball. Should we start with the top 10 then? Get festivities. We've got a couple of weeks off, so we've got some stuff to catch up on.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive straight into the top 10 UK and Ireland list of how much they're making. What's it actually called? What would you call this? The top 10
The
what?
UK the box office top 10. I will point out,
That's
actually, I'm just looking at it now before we start it. And at number 10 through number 7, not seen. And they are, in order, number 10, Bugonia, which is a new Emma Stone, Yorgos Lanthimos movie. That's made 5.9 mil that made 2.6 mil in 3 weeks. I still haven't seen it. I will because it's award season. You know, and it's a Yorgos movie. It's got Emma Stone. So obviously I need to, because it'll come up. You know what I mean? Like, it'll get nominated for something. So I'm going to be required to have seen that. I'm not going to be required to see number 9, though, A Paw Patrol Christmas. Because there is a God. And my nephew, thankfully, is too old for Paw Patrol Christmas now. There are no other kids in my orbit who are like Paw Patrol age. Has Albert aged out of Paw Patrol?
I was just about to say, I'd say Albert is probably out of Paw Patrol age now, which makes me a little bit sad because, you know, that was his favourite thing growing up. Now he's 7, doesn't really care about it.
All about the Roblox now, yeah.
Yep.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that Paw Patrol have made just over £500,000 in the 2 weeks they've had that out. Number 8, Regretting You, 5.9. This is the 5.9 one. Been out for a month. It was a Paramount movie, that's why we didn't cover it. This is from the writer of It Ends With Us, Colleen Hoover. What is wrong?
I think it's a better name.
It might be. I mean, it might make for a better read anyway. I'll be honest, I did not like It Ends With Us. I laughed hysterically through It Ends With Us, which is just I think outside of the real world stuff with Justin Baldoni and Blake, like outside of that, I think the movie's an incredibly problematic text. Like, I'm sure it worked better in the book, but as a movie, not so much. My mum thinks it's terrific. Both my partner and I think it's awful. I think it's particularly problematic. Number 7 is Christmas Karma. This came out last week. It's made just under £500,000. This is basically A Christmas Carol, but British, a new British adaptation. And it's by Gurinder Chardner, who made Bend It Like Beckham and Blinded by the Light. Has a largely, I think, Asian British cast. So I think that's the spin they're putting on A Christmas Carol here. I'm not sure what they've renamed some of the characters. I'd be quite curious to find out, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about it. I've not even seen a trailer for it, to be quite honest with you. So yeah,
I have sadly though seen The Coral at number 6.
Yes, I remember.
£2.5 million. This is just a really forgettable movie. Like, it was in line with, like, was it the Guernsey Potato Peel Society and Military Wives? It was like one of those kind of, just a typical underdog British choir story. Really wanted to be brassed off, but with some wartime clout, and it just doesn't quite have the depth to get there. I mean, we forget that like Brassed Off was just a really, heartfelt, emotionally wrenching movie. Pete Postlethwaite representing all. But yeah, alas, the choral, which has a pretty good performance from Ray Fiennes, even though he's kind of just sending himself up.
Yeah.
But outside of Fiennes, there ain't much going on for it.
Number 5, what? Jujutsu.
No, don't even try it. I think it's anime. Don't try it. I haven't seen it anyway, so we can't talk about it. I haven't seen Nuremberg at number 4 either. Number 3, Predator Badlands, I have seen. And I think Predator Badlands is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, I was a really big fan of this. It takes a really opposite spin to the Predator, which is this time the Predator's the good guy. Like, he's kind of the focus of the story in a way. Like, rather than it's the human being hunted by the Predator this time around, it's the Predator on the hunt. And it plays like a Klingon episode of Star Trek Next Generation. Or Deep Space. Any of the Worf episodes of Star Trek. Imagine that, but with a Predator. So the Predator is talking and things like that in his language, like with subtitles.
See, I'd like that.
He has like a human android sidekick who has no legs. He straps her to his back like C-3PO in Empire Strikes Back. And just Chewie does with 3PO, exactly like that. Only it's Elle Fanning from The Great, and she's like kind of the comic relief, but also the expository kind of character. Really good fun. It does not look as cheap a movie as it is. It looks like this big expensive blockbuster. It's made for less than 100, and it looks like the kind of thing studios are charging like the quarter of a bill for. But
wow.
Big fan.
Okay, well, that made 4.2 million in 2 weeks. Number 2, I forgot about this, and I do want to see it, actually, because I loved the original. The Running Man, been out 2 weeks, 2.3 million. Now, this was, I think if I remember rightly, you said this was an actual remake.
No, this is the whole thing. This is kind of like The Roses, where there was a novel, there was a movie adapted from that novel, and now we have another movie that is also adapted differently from that novel. So it's someone else's take on the novel. So you had War of the Roses, the book, then you had War of the Roses, the film by Danny DeVito, and then you had the Benedict Cumberbatch, Olivia Colman, The Roses this year. Same thing with The Running Man, which is written by Stephen King back when he was going through his sort of coke-addled Richard Bachman era, which is just a weird time. It feels really strange as a Stephen King fan that he had that period, but it would be kind of like, hey, do you remember that period where John Lennon just went off and became a drum and bass guy for like 5 years? It's kind of like that. If that had happened and you were a Beatles guy, when John Lennon had his drum and bass phase for 5 years for no reason. It's exactly like that with Stephen King and Bachman. And then, of course, the Schwarzenegger movie got adapted from it in about 87, I think, and that's pretty far removed from the book. Like, it very much does its own kind of thing. This is a lot closer to it. It's directed and written by Edgar Wright of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim fame. The man who gave us your celebrity lookalike Nick Frost into the world.
Yes.
Yeah, he popularised Nick Frost.
Does that mean that there's some comedy in this version of it then?
That's the weird thing about it, because this is not a funny film. There are some sort of obnoxious, kind of dark-hearted laughs, but it's not a comedy. It's primarily an action thriller adaptation of the Stephen King novel. This time starring Glenn Powell. It's much more of a conventional kind of... I don't want to say everyman, because everyman does not look like Glenn Powell, but a bit more everyman than, a version of this starring Schwarzenegger. And I'm saying I was a big fan of it. I think it's the least Edgar Wright movie of Edgar Wright's entire career, though.
Number 1 then, Now You See Me, Now You Don't. It's been out a week, 2.3 million. I mean, that's pretty decent.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't want to tell you too much about it because we were going to review it. We've got it in the second block, so we'll talk about it after the break anyway. But I will give you a more in-depth look at that because I think it is worth talking about, actually. So we'll save Now You See It. It's doing quite well, though, isn't it?
It is. Right, well, let's dive into our first movie of the week then. It's a documentary, and it is called Testimony. And I don't know anything about this, so take it away, Van.
Do you remember a few months ago we reviewed a movie starring Cillian Murphy? I can't even remember what it was called. That one, it was about April, May kind of time. It was the really depressing Irish drama that involved the Magdalen Laundries. Do you remember us talking about it? Maybe about 6 months ago now.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that now, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, the subject of the Magdalen Laundries doesn't Magdalen Laundries. I think it's Magdalen Laundries doesn't really come up a lot in popular culture. But this is a documentary that goes back to that story and addresses it head on, specifically with material that wouldn't have been available, involved in the writing of that movie. So, are you aware of the actual story behind the Laundries of the scandal and everything? Right, so the idea that came up is that for most of the 20th century, the Irish government was in league with the Catholic Church and was basically rounding up quote-unquote undesirables, which largely turned out to be unwed or teenage or even underage mums, effectively, and carted them off to what was effectively, the care of nuns to be seconded away in laundries. Effectively, industrial laundries. And, when the kids were born, the kids got kept in a sort of, another facility on their own, and the mums were allowed like an hour a day with them when they'd finished serving unpaid in the laundries, and that was the scandal. The whole thing was no one was allowed to leave. And this was all kept relatively hush-hush, so the outside world really didn't know this. And since, in particular, the mid to late 90s, it's become an ongoing crusade to get justice for these women, to get the Irish government to acknowledge their complicity in it. And, well, let's not pray for miracles and expect the Catholic Church to own up to anything anytime soon. So, here is the documentary, which relies very heavily on the testimony of women that survived these laundries. And it is about the legality of their testimony. Do their stories count as legal evidence of what happened? Because remember, there is a vast government conspiracy to keep this hidden. So have a listen. This is kind of what you're in for. This is documentary testimony.
How could we not know that 1 in every 100 was locked up? We had to put the state in the dock, make it answer for the crimes against its citizens.
Their stories were actually testimony, and that counted as a form of evidence.
It was like prison. I escaped, and immediately they got the police.
This was state involvement on a whole new level.
This, it intrigues me because, you know me in documentaries. I would much rather sit and watch a documentary than a fiction movie, to be honest.
It's riveting. You get sucked in from minute one. Like it starts off running and does not spare any detail on the way. It takes you through the horror of this. And there are several points in this that I honestly was struggling. Like I found it hard to watch. I genuinely found it struggling because, like I say, the movie's called Testimony, and you do get exposed to a lot of said testimony, and it is heart-wrenching stuff. So much so that at what feels like about 2/3 of the way through, they bring the real-life Philomena in. Do you remember the movie Philomena with Judi Dench about 5 or so years ago?
Yes, I think I do.
It was like an award. Steve Coogan starred in it with her.
Yes,
where he was
he
was helping her find her lost son from when she had been in a Magdalene laundry.
Right,
and of course,
yes.
the real life Philomena gets interviewed here and repeats the story. And I remember the movie was quite moving. And you get a 2-minute version of the story of that movie. And that, as delivered by the real Philomena, is so soul-destroying. Like, you honestly despair for the world. It is a hard watch, but it's fascinating. It's essential viewing, because I think everybody should know this story. Like, I think it's one of those things, it's an absolute travesty that this was ever... Because this is mass, state-sanctioned horror on a level that, you draw to very specific real-world parallels in terms of, large numbers of populations being subjugated by their own governments. I mean, this takes you to things like gulags and concentration camps. And there's a direct comparison here drawn between what these laundries were like to live and work in and a Soviet gulag. And you got to bear in mind, Soviet gulags were a thing in the middle of the laundries. So in the middle of their lives is when gulags were a thing. So they actually outlasted them. So hard watch, but very good, really interesting, captivating, heartbreaking, and unmissable, essential stuff.
Well, if you want to see it, you can, because Testimony is out in cinemas from now. All right, on to the next couple of movies. Next, we're going to look at The Carpenter's Son, and as Van mentioned earlier, Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Top of the UK box office at the moment. We'll see what Van thought of it next.
Join me, Jacqueline Coley, as I sit down with Mark Platt, producer of Wicked and Wicked for Good, as he reveals how his family and collaborations have shaped his storytelling. Plus, how Wicked for Good delivers the satisfying finale fans have been waiting for. Listen now to Seen on the Screen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at MichelobUltra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at michelobultra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
Hello and welcome back then. Let's dive straight into our next movie. Top of the UK box office. Now You See Me, Now You Don't. As a title, Van, I love the sound of this, and I'm hoping and praying it's as good as it sounds.
Well, here's the thing, right? Do you know about the Dan Harmon clip? Because this is one of those things millennials know very well, and like no one else cares about. Do you know who Dan Harmon is? First of all,
the name rings a bell, but I couldn't tell you what he is.
Dan Harmon is the guy that created the TV show Community, and he's the co-creator of Rick and Morty as well.
Right.
He's quite a known like heavy drinker and podcaster simultaneously. And he did this whole bit, I think it was a live podcast on stage, where he complains about seeing the marketing for Now You See Me Too, and saying that they had the dumbest writers in history because surely the most obvious sequel title in the universe to a movie called Now You See Me is Now You Don't. And now we've got to the third movie, and the first thing they've corrected is we forgot the title. Now You See Me, Now You Don't. So for some reason, we inexplicably have Now You See Me, Now You See Me Too, Now You Don't, which is just idiotic.
It's silly, yeah.
Right. And I'm putting that out there as a negative in front of the fact that I really enjoyed and like this movie. Okay, so are you familiar with the series?
No.
Do you know the French? Right, okay. So I think it's 2011 or 2012, maybe later than that, maybe 2013, the first Now You See Me drops, which is effectively Ocean's 11, but with 4 Vegas-level magicians. Right, like, you know the guys in, like, tuxes doing the Chris Angel type stuff? Like, they lock themselves in boxes, like, David Blaine has nothing on these guys, except they're like Ocean's 11, and they rip people off. Okay, that's basically the concept of them. They made 2 of these movies. The second one was quite forgettable, so much that when I came out of the cinema and looked it up, I was shocked to find out that it had Daniel Radcliffe and Michael Caine as its villains, and I somehow forgot that movie. That's how forgettable the second one was.
Wow.
So the second one was 9 years ago. The second one was in 2016. And now we've got a third one that kind of plays like a Lego sequel. Like a generational legacy sequel, like what the Scream movies do now, where they have a new generation of 3 sort of college age kind of magicians, like the cool audience surrogate magicians. And they are the fanboys of the original magicians who sort of bring them into the mix, and they become like a much larger team, old members and new. And they set off on another heist, using the tricks of magic. This time around, they're going after Rosamund Pike, who is the heiress, like the spoilt, corrupt, criminal heiress to what's clearly meant to be De Beers, but is portrayed here as just a corrupt South African diamond dynasty. And she's in possession of the Heart Diamond, which they have decided they are going to steal from her in full view of the world. So have a listen to this clip. This is them literally doing that to her in front of a full room of people.
My name is J. Daniel Atlas. You may remember me as your personal favorite of the 4 horsemen of magic. Now watch closely as I make the famous Heart Diamond appear on my palm.
Gee whiz, he must be as starved for attention as Greenpeace here. Rest assured that the diamond is completely safe.
Is it? Now, a wise man once told me, in the mirror, in fact, never assume you're the smartest person in the room. Prove it.
Be my guest.
All right, well, let's see if we can get that case open. Abracadabra. Huh, nope. Alakazam. Wait. Open sesame.
I'm getting flashbacks. I think I've seen the first one of this, and I really loved it.
Yeah, the first is really fun. The second one just feels like a kind of cash-in sequel, and it feels infinitely sillier. This very much makes up for the second one. And actually, the way they've played it as a Lego sequel, as the next generation kind of thing, really works. Because it's kind of nice to see Jesse Eisenberg now as the sort of older mentor figure to someone slightly younger and more annoying than himself, but also kind of quite similar. And obviously, they go for that same gag that they did in Fast and Furious 6, I think it was, which is, when you've got parallel members of the team. It's good fun. It is really good fun. It relies very heavily on the tried and tested narrative trick of they do something seemingly incredible in front of you, and then 5 minutes later you get the flashback where it takes you all through it and shows you how they did it, like a Mission Impossible movie does.
Yes.
Well, it kind of the exact reverse of a Mission Impossible movie, in fact, because they usually do it in advance. But the way they do it, you're always like, oh, okay, it's kind of clever. You have to suspend disbelief because none of this is in any way realistic. I mean, holograms are a common everyday item, in this universe, but it's good fun. And the returning players kind of match up with the newcomers. The newcomers all kind of make an impression. You've got Dominic Sessa from The Holdovers, who was, for me, the breakout of The Holdovers about 18 months ago now. Ariana Greenblatt, who makes quite an impression, actually, as the sort of new young lady lead of the group. And then you've got Justice Smith in there as well, who's really leaning into what is quickly becoming his type, but also kind of nicely subverting it in a way I don't really want to delve too much into, because that's kind of the crux of these movies. You have to be careful what you do and don't spoil in case anyone actually genuinely cares. But like I say, it's not realistic based anyway, so yeah. But yeah, really good, really solid. I thought just a good old-fashioned, kind of more, even though it's like a 12A rated thing, feels like, for the adults type adventure thriller. It made me long for things more like Ocean's 11 and even something like National Treasure in there as well. So I'd say if you want a slightly more family-friendly, Ocean's 11, Ocean's 11 is family-friendly-ish, I guess, but if you want a sort of more family-appropriate one, with magic no less, look no further. Just ignore the second one in this trilogy, and so far it's turning out pretty good.
Yeah, no, you sold it to me. Now you see me. Now you don't in cinemas from now. Okay, we're moving on to a horror now, The Carpenter's Son. So, I don't know much about this one. I think it's set in Egypt, isn't it?
Brace yourself for this. This is nuts. Okay. Now, first of all, it stars Nicolas Cage, so nuts is kind of a prerequisite, right? But the theory that every third Nicolas Cage movie is a banger? I went into this thinking, I've lost track of what number we're on. Is this going to be the banger, or is it banger time? Anyway, I can tell you, I think he thinks it is. I'll go with that. So, this is best described as Jesus horror. And I say that because the publicist handling the movie literally emailed me the press release for it with the caption of Jesus horror. So I think they're trying to lean into that. This is trying to be one of those elevated horrors, like an A24 movie. The basic premise here is you've got Jesus Christ when he is about sort of 15, 16 years old. And he's played here by, I think it's Noah Jupe. Is it Noah Jupe? Yes, Noah Jupe plays the sort of teenage Jesus. You've got Nicolas Cage as Joseph, and FKA Twigs from that god-awful Crow remake a couple of years ago, and also, I believe, some sort of musician. I wouldn't know. I'm 42. As, they're Joseph and Mary, respectively. They are, at this stage in Jesus' life, effectively living on the run. Like, wherever they move to, they have to live relatively in secret, under assumed identities, things like that. Can't let on, because obviously his existence, should it become known to certain people, makes him an immediate target. However, whilst they are also on the run from, people, the Romans, etc., there is also another influence that starts to appear and draw Jesus aside, and it is this demonic presence that seems to exist in the form of a young age-comparable teenage girl who seems to be drawing our young teen Jesus into more darker, vivid, hallucinatory, supernatural realms, all as Joseph looks on in absolute horror, wanting to do nothing more than save his son, but also dealing with the idea that his son simply wants to live his life, doesn't quite know where he comes from, in a very Clark Kent from Smallville type way. Like if you remember the scene in the first episode of Smallville when Jonathan Kent has to explain to Clark, yeah, you're not from this planet. There is literally that scene in this movie. But say, all with Joseph watching on in absolute horror. Have a listen to this clip.
For years we live in hiding, driven from every home. He bears a power he cannot understand, a power I cannot contain.
Is he my father?
You put that in your mind. Do you want to know a secret? I know one that can
free you.
Who are you?
You know who I am.
You don't want to watch this after a few drinks, do you? Because you probably wouldn't understand it.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, when I was watching it, like went in on the day, watched it, and I think as I was watching it, I wasn't that taken by it. I thought, actually, I don't think this has quite got the material for what it's trying to pull off. I think it's confusing its vagueness with, something to say. Like, I think it thinks it's being smart by being vague. And actually, I will say that the more time that's been put between me actually watching it and me talking about it now, the more in hindsight, I actually have liked it. I like it a lot more now than I did when I watched it 4 days ago. Because actually, the more time, that did work for me. It sticks with you. And I think it's not subtle in its subtext. I mean, it's kind of like Good Boy in that way. If you think this subtext is, too difficult to grasp, then I'd argue that narrative fiction probably isn't for you. It's not really that hard a one to grasp. This one, I mean, at one point it replicates a sequence from The Last Jedi, of all things, which I thought was kind of a neat inclusion. But it's directed by Lofty Nathan, whose work I didn't really know, has done a couple of movies, but I would assume from the first name is Egyptian, which does explain the setting as well. It also makes a claim at the beginning that it claims to come from, I forget, it was the emphases of, I forget who, it comes from one of the texts and claims to be, controversial. It's about the missing years of Christ. So they're trying to add a, this could have happened element to it, but it's still not going to get away from the fact that, first of all, it's a Nicolas Cage Jesus horror movie, and second of all, it's got Nicolas Cage operating on a different frequency to everyone else in the movie. I know that's nothing new. It's Nicolas Cage. He's always operating at a different frequency. But here it's relatively, even though it's still bonkers, by his standard, quite measured. Noah Jupe's very good as Teen Christ, and I didn't quite get what FKA Twigs was going for with her Mary, but sure. But I do think Nicolas Cage, this is him trying. This is one of the better ones of recent years. It's not Pig, it's not Pig level or anything like that. But yeah, I thought it's good Cage.
Good Cage, weird movie.
Weird movie, definitely weird movie, but not the most complex. But it does. I say it's grown on me.
Well, if you want to watch it, The Carpenter's Son is in cinemas from today. We've got 2 more movies left to look at with Van. We're going to look at Sisu, Road to Revenge, and next, Wicked for Good. We'll see what Van thought. Stay there. Hello and welcome back to Off Screen then. We're going to dive straight into our next movie, which is Wicked for Good. So I get confused with this. So is this the second Wicked movie?
Yes, this is the second Wicked movie. If you want to be really confusing about it, the first movie has the title... First, be really hilarious about it. The first movie opens with, I think it's a voiceover by Ariana Grande that says, "You think you know the story, but you don't. Here's the full story." And then literally on screen appears Wicked Part 1, which is maybe one of the most crassly cynical pieces of marketing bilge I've seen on the
full story then, is it?
It's not the full story, it's Part 1 of the full story, Annie. Right, and then instead of calling this Part 2, they've called it For Good. So you're like, okay, sure. Anyway, right. So, this is the second half of the adaptation of the stage musical based on the novel of the same name. Now, I have to imagine they're relying more on the stage musical than the novel for this, if I'm being honest. But I want to preempt this with the caveat. First of all, I have never seen Wicked, the stage musical. Have you, Mr. Ball, ever seen Wicked, the stage musical?
Yes, because my best friend, who I went to amateur dramatics with when I was younger, played I think, Prince in the West End show that I went to see.
Fantastic. He played Pharaoh or something like that.
That's
Fiero.
It, because Denise Van Outen's husband took his place when my friend Ollie left.
All right. Okay, fair. So, you maybe have a bit more of an appreciation for this than me. It is generally held amongst most people who have seen Wicked, and people see this all the time. There are people who see this like every other week. Like, I know people are fanatical about Wicked. But it's pretty acknowledged, even amongst its most diehard fans, that the second half is the weaker half of the story. That it's basically a front-loaded stage musical. Now, that's definitely, I think we can definitely say that's the case with the film. They seem to be aware of it. They've tried to correct it, and they've made it worse. So the idea here is we follow off the back of the first half, in which Elphaba, the Green Witch, has basically been vilified for wanting to expose the Wizard of Oz for being the corrupt fraud that he is. However, this puts her at odds with her best friend, Galinda, who is, sort of an unlikely best friend, who's Ariana Grande, who is basically kept behind and is now being used as effectively a PR front person shill to basically represent the good side of the Ozian government, whilst Elphaba is basically being depicted as a terrorist. And in order to get away with this, the Wizard of Oz and Madame Marvel, I want to say her name is, or Mistress Marvel, played by Michelle Yeoh, are basically orchestrating what seems to be a campaign of effectively deep fakes and fake news to basically false flag Elphaba and brand her this terrorist that will get her taken down and prevent the truth of their corrupt regime coming to light. Stop me if any of this sounds like it could have been made so much more topical than they actually did. But wait, there's more! Because halfway through this damn movie, which would, if we are keeping track, my friend, be 3/4 of the way through the total story, they decide to drop the entire plot of The Wizard of Oz in there too. Because don't forget, Elphaba has to have an end to her story, and they already spent a good couple of minutes at the beginning of the first movie using digital extras, background artists, and deep fakes to basically establish that this was taking place in the continuity of the 1939 MGM Wizard of Oz musical. On which note, here's a clip. This is Jonathan Bailey as Fiyero, your friend's role, counselling Ariana Grande's Galinda about how they can't keep going on with this. Elphaba's a terrorist stick, surely.
You can't leave because you can't resist this. That's the truth.
Well, maybe I can't. Is that so wrong? I mean, who could?
Well, you know who could. We both know who could and who has. And I have to find her, because if someone else gets there first,
I'm worried for her, too. And I miss her. Can't you see she doesn't want to be found? You've got to face it. She's made her choice.
I mean, if I'm to be completely honest, you lost me at Wicked for Good.
Right. All right, I'll be really honest with you. For about the first half of this... Right, let's caveat this. Let's preamble. Right, okay. So, I'm not a fan of Wicked, as you know. Like, I've never seen the stage show, I've never read the book, I only have the movie to go on. I thought the first movie was unbearable. I really hated the first movie. It was not for me. Now, that being said, if there's going to be a part 2, right, Twilight rules apply, as I like to say. They're going to keep making these whether or not I care, or whether or not I'm going to show up. I'm going to have to review them either way, so it's a case of either get on board or don't bother, right? So I'm going into this, and my perspective is, right, I have to view this now as if I particularly liked the first one, because otherwise they're not aiming this at anyone else. They're aiming at anyone who showed up to the first one, obviously. So I have to view this through the prism of, if I liked the first movie, what is it I would presumably have liked? And I can genuinely tell you that on nearly every one of those levels, it falls apart very quickly. The first movie was unbearable. This is unbearable and a mess. That's the really strange thing. Because the first movie took place in basically 2 or 3 locations. And it was those really nice sort of, well-made sets that were the Shiz University and things like that. So it allowed them to kind of focus on the sort of schoolgirl banter and things like that, the one-upmanship, the theatrics. And you kind of got a bit, I'll say unbearable, but you did actually kind of get to grips with Elphaba and Galinda as characters a lot more. This feels comparatively like they've just done that away for what looks like really bland green screen sets. And just all plot all the time. And the fact that it's kind of phoned in without as much character stuff, and then as poorly put together on the green screen side, and then as poorly staged as it is, and as badly directed as it is, made me think an awful lot of Star Wars Episode 1. In fact, not even episode one, actually. Not even episode one, actually. Some of the worst parts of the following two as well. Like, this is really George Lucas territory. Like, I really sat there watching this thinking, like, I feel like every time I watch episode one again, like, if I'm viewing this through fan goggles, this is going to wind up feeling, to a lot of people, in fact, like how we see, that's unfair to Lucas, how we see Rise of Skywalker, actually. Like, it has that feeling to it. And then, halfway through, you just about become numb to it. And I found myself thinking, you know what? Because bear in mind, they haven't really made it that messy by that point. It's a little bit scattershot, it's a bit all over the place, but they've not really dropped the big bag of mess yet. And I got lulled into a false sense of security. And I thought to myself, actually, maybe this isn't as bad as the first one. Maybe this could look up. Like, maybe I don't have to focus on viewing it through this prism of I liked the first one. If I can just sit back and enjoy it, maybe I can. And then, about a minute later, they then dropped the plot of 1939's The Wizard of Oz into it and started retconning. But it was a very weird thing. They dropped The Wizard of Oz in. I'm not sure if they do this in the stage show or in the book, but as a movie, this simply does not work. As a work of cinematic narrative fiction, this simply does not hold water. They ask you repeatedly to remember and dine out on your nostalgia for the 1939 Wizard of Oz, specifically the Judy Garland in the gingham dress version of the Wizard of Oz. There is no bones made about this. And then they want to retcon every little piece of it. So now the Tin Man comes from this place, and now the Scarecrow comes from this place, and now the Lion comes from this place, and they all outright want Elphaba dead for personal reasons of revenge. You're like, wait, hang on a minute. So you want me to remember and dine out on my nostalgia for the 1939 MGM musical version of The Wizard of Oz, but you also now want me to add an element where everybody knew it was apparently a bloodthirsty vengeance killer, but it just didn't get mentioned? This is the level we're going for. And that's before you factor Dorothy in it, who now looks like kind of a gormless, stupefied, accidental murderer. Right.
I want to see it now.
Right. Then there are the performances. Right. Which, again, because we're now pretty much firmly on plot and not performance, something that, for instance, Dune 2 managed to avoid quite nicely. What you've then got is Cynthia Erivo, who simply does not have the gravitas to convincingly pull this off. I mean, at one point she shouts the word "fly," to the sky, and she does it with so little enthusiasm that you're sat there thinking, hang on a minute, haven't you won awards and stuff? Like, how? I mean, that, of course, pales in comparison. Pales. Wait for this one. Pales. That's going to be an ironic word in a minute. That, of course, pales in comparison to Ariana Grande, who, let's not forget, got an Oscar nomination for the first one of these. And all I'm going to say on that one is that a lot of people who vote in the Oscars happen to wear rainbow lapel pins. So I'm just going to put that out there as maybe that's why Wicked got the fandom that it did at the awards run last year, because it really didn't deserve it. And then we get to Ariana Grande, who, let's be honest, plays this as such a googly-eyed, gormless baby girl that it undercuts any of the power that the story should have. That the story should have as regards being played by people in positions of authority. And what you wind up with, because of how she plays it, is a story that unintentionally literally just comes out as, let's see, a bulimic grasshopper in whiteface gets rewarded with magical powers for tormenting one woman of colour whilst outright aiding in the murder of another. Which, wow, that's a text. I've not even gotten to the part where they make massive plot movements entirely off screen. Like, I mean, really just off screen, and then they show you the aftermath and tell you about it. And, the old rule of cinema is show, don't tell. Welcome to Wicked, baby, where it's all tell all the time, except, because the second half of the musical didn't have as many good numbers in it, this time they have to do it in dialogue, and boy, are they bad at pulling it off, because they cannot do that pseudo Roald Dahl shtick. That give me a clock tick and just one clock tick and all that. And they're always on about this clock tick thing instead of just saying a second. So give me a clock tick. But the thing is, every time they do it, it sounds awkward and forced, and it reminds you how artificial and completely unnatural all of this feels. Which is to say nothing of how badly shot it is. I mean, honestly, whoever photographed this thing needs their head examining, because how you go and make something based on the original technical. I mean, the original Wizard of Oz is the first movie in Technicolor to get to where it did in the awards, to win Best Picture. How you follow it up with a movie that looks as bleached out as this is honestly stupefying to me. And all of which is a roundabout way of saying this was 2 hours and 14 minutes of my life that I immensely regret. And I spent most of this week dying of the flu. I can assure you, dying of the flu was a more preferable experience than sitting through Wicked for Good. I mean, if you like the first one, enjoy more gruel. This one's slightly more watered. But other than that, I really have nothing positive to say about it other than it ends.
Well, there you go then. If you do decide that you want to make your own mind up and see Wicked for Good, you can if you want to, because it's in cinemas from today. Right then, we've got one movie left to look at. I'm sure we've done... Did we do the first Sisu?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We will get there. That makes me
feel old.
We'll get there.
Well, we're going to see what Van thinks of the next one, Sisu Road to Revenge. Next, stay where you are.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
The Who's Down in Who Newville were making their list, but some didn't know Walmart has the best brands for their gifts.
What about toys? Do they have brands kids have been wanting all year?
Yep, Barbie, Tony's, and Lego. Gifts that will make them all cheer.
Do you mean they have all the brands I adore?
They have Nintendo, Nespresso, Apple, and more.
What about...
So the Who answered questions from friends till they were blue. Each one listened and shouted, from Walmart? Who knew? Shop gifts from top brands for everyone on your list in the Walmart app.
Hello and welcome back to Off Screen for one last ride then. We are diving straight into the sequel to Sisu, and it's called Sisu Road to Revenge. Now, me and Van were just chatting a moment ago because I was kind of thinking, I'm sure I've seen it, I couldn't remember it. And I remember the first one now, and it was an incredible movie.
Yeah, if memory serves, I think I watched it at the start of the week. I had it on Link, and I watched it. I was absolutely blown away. I messaged you when I have just seen the most incredible action movie. It's John Wick with Nazis. It's insane. You have to watch it. And against all odds, on a very rare occasion, you actually listened to me and watched it. And I think it was that night. I think you literally texted about, you know what, I've got nothing to do tonight. Fine, fire the link over. And I did. And I remember you texting me that night, being like, that was absolutely... in fact, you text me all the way through it. Oh my God, I can't believe that. Wait, did they just do... And you kept doing that all the way through. And it's only a 90-minute film. But it was best described as John Wick with Nazis. The idea was simple. It is set at towards the end of World War II, when Finland had its borders constantly moved and things like that. And people found themselves going from living in Finland to accidentally living in the Soviet Union, etc. Our lead was a retired soldier, as far as we knew, who had decided to go gold prospecting in the abandoned region the Nazis were sort of passing through on their way home, effectively. And Sisu, I forget his name actually. His name isn't actually Sisu. Our lead had a big bag of gold. The Germans decided to pick on him and take it for themselves. And it turns out they screwed with the wrong guy, because as we quickly got told, his name is the Immortal. And he was known for being a man whose family had been killed by the Soviets and who then dedicated his life to one sole purpose, the absolute massacre of any Soviet-born human being. He killed 300 Soviet troops single-handedly, and he himself simply cannot be killed. And if you remember the film, the first one, they really tried to kill him. The man survived a lot. Right. In a move that I'm sure you're going to appreciate, Sisu Road to Revenge. And I want to point out that when we reviewed that first one, I did say to you I wanted 9 sequels to this. Here we have the first of what I hope still are 9 sequels. In this movie, Sisu's moving house, which I'm sure you'll appreciate. Only Sisu's version of moving house is to literally move the house. He crosses the border into the Soviet Union and finds his former home, where his family were killed in land that the Soviets have now claimed as part of their union. He knocks down his house and takes every single plank of wood, loads it onto a truck, and sets about driving it back to Finland so he can rebuild it in Finland in his family's honor. However, the second he crosses the border, the Soviet Union, by virtue of having seen his passport, knows that he is there. And, well, they're not too happy about the Immortal being back in Mother Russia. So they've got a contingency of their own. Have a listen to this clip. You'll very quickly get the gist.
Yegor Dragunov, you killed hundreds of civilians, including the family of a Finnish commando who took revenge and became a legend. The legend entered Soviet Union 10 hours ago. I'm sending you to clean up your mess.
I think the legend has been homesick. Go on.
Hearing his voice again's taken me back to the first movie, which was absolutely awesome.
Well, that is Stephen Lang. Right, so the voice you could largely... The first voice there was Richard Brake, who is best known as Joe Chill from the Dark Knight movies. And then the actual villain of the piece, Dragunov, is Stephen Lang from Avatar, so the bad guy, Quaritch from the Avatar movies. And first of all, if you want someone to go toe-to-toe with Sisu, his name is Atami Corpi, by the way, but it doesn't matter. For how seriously you take these movies, you're just calling him Sisu. And the movies, both movies, in the same way that Top Gun begins with the same opening sequence in both, the same text and the same planes taking off thing. This does the same with the first Sisu, where it brings up on screen the term Sisu means the spirit of vengeance or something, the unkillable spirit of vengeance. So of course you just call him Sisu in your head. You don't care. His name is Atami Ko. He's played by Yoma Tomiya, who just brings such an unflinching intensity to this. I do not know him from anything else offhand, and I think he's just phenomenal in this role. I honestly want to see some sort of crossover, he fights John Wick in the afterlife or something. I need that crossover movie. But Stephen Lang can absolutely go toe-to-toe with him. Now, about what I'd said previously with Wicked, about how if you're not a fan, you have to view these things through the prism of if you are. When I said that Wicked still failed on every level it was trying for, here you've got the exact opposite. Now, I happen to be a fan of this. I was a big fan of the first one, as were you. But I think it's undeniable that in terms of here's everything you liked about the first movie, and here's how we escalate every single one of those components, I think it's hard to dispute this as a really successful sequel. I don't think it's as good a movie, but I don't think John Wick 2 is as good as John Wick. You know what I mean? Some things are best when kept simple. Obviously Sisu as well. And obviously if you're going to heighten this, if you're going to heighten the action of a movie as absolutely insane as Sisu, it's going to get a little silly. And I will say that if you're going to see this and you get through the first third and you get to a moment involving an aircraft and you mentally check out, I would say leave the cinema at that exact point, because it only gets worse from there. The first movie was extreme. This is absolutely absurd. This is a live-action Looney Tunes adaptation for psychopaths, is the best way I can call it. Everything they put the poor bugger through in the first movie, believe me, they do worse here. And you remember how bad that first movie was. I mean, he got hung at one point and left for dead. And somehow he convincingly survived it. You remember, it was that bad. He was throwing himself out of aircraft. This is very much a Planes, Trains, and Automobiles sequel. Like, you know it's an awesome action movie when they have to involve a train by the third act. Like, it's that level of just badassery. Yamari Helander, who directed the first one, directed Big Game back in the day with Samuel L. Jackson, is back helming this one as well, writing and directing it. It's kind of chapter structured like the first one was, where it's action episodes. So much so that you almost wish this was a weekly streaming series. You'd be like, this would be the best thing streaming ever produced if they did. I honestly had a whale of a time with it. I was sat next to, I think it was Tom Huddleston from Time Out, who, this is not his bag at all. Like, he's not that kind of guy where he would go for this kind of thing. And he was cackling away like a gibbon. Honestly, he had done the exact thing I'm talking about, where even if you're not a fan, you have to start to imagine, if I'm coming into the second one of these, I have to imagine they're only aiming at what would I be looking to enjoy. And he clicked with it and connected with it in a way that I envied him for Wicked, and he was just giggling and laughing his ass off, and I feel it for him because I just had a great time with this. Yoma Tamiya in the lead, honestly, please pitch him against John Wick at some point. I just had a ball. This is just a theme park ride of a movie.
Well, you sold it to me. I mean, I love the first one. I'm gonna love this one, I think, from what you've said. Sisu, yeah. Road to Revenge, out in cinemas for you to view at your pleasure. Right, let's have a quick look at what we've got coming up next week. Primitive War we're looking at.
I've been dying to review this. So this has been kicking about for a little while now. I think it went to straight to digital in the US 3 months ago. This is a dinosaur action movie in which I think soldiers from the Vietnam War get sent back in time. Either that or dinosaurs get brought forward into the Vietnam War. All I know is it involves dinosaurs and Vietnam.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And do you know what? That's enough for me. You've got my money, son.
Yeah, same. Looking forward to that. Blue Moon as well. Next week we're going to look at.
This is the new Linklater movie with Ethan Hawke. I saw this with Stuart Armour last week. We popped along to Sony for an evening screening of this. So Ethan Hawke, Richard Linklater. So there's a bit of a before sunrise, after sunset reunion going on there. This is about the composer who worked with, I think it was Rodgers before Hammerstein. So, you got Rodgers and Hammerstein who composed all the great musicals. This was the partnership before that partnership, and how that partnership had to sour for Rodgers and Hammerstein to become a thing. And, Ethan Hawke is the former partner. Is about his last hurrah, really, his last sort of time in the spotlight. It's just an interesting movie, actually.
Also next week, Pillion. Something to do with sitting on the back of a bike?
It is. Is that what Pillion means?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what that means? Oh, okay, right, that explains it, because I had no context for that. Yes, so this one stars, is it Harry Mealing I think it's Harry Mealing, who was Dudley in Harry Potter. Dudley Dursley in Harry Potter. Right, and he is a young gay man who becomes a sub for this way out of his league gay biker played by Alexander Skarsgård, who literally treats him as his dog at stage, makes him sleep on the bedroom rug and things like that. I watched this with Faith the other night. I was in the throes of the flu at the time, and this movie honestly cheered me right up. Think of this as the gay male answer to Secretary. Did you ever see Secretary?
No.
Oh, okay. When you get off this, just YouTube the trailer for Secretary and get that ordered on disc if it's not available on streaming, because, buddy, your life is about to change. So yeah, Pillion. It's a really interesting film, and I can't believe it's on a bigger deal actually. But I'm looking forward to talking about it.
And finally, we're going to look at Zootropolis 2 next week as well. I haven't even seen Zootropolis.
Have you not? Oh my God. What kind of parent are you? You've never watched Zootopia? I think it's Zootopia in the UK. I'm not sure if it's Zootopia or Zootropolis in the UK.
He doesn't sit still long enough, Van.
I think, to be honest, it's sensory overload. So I think it kind of accommodates that because it's so vivid and pulsing with its sort of color and visual palette. It really lands. It's also it's the basic premise of kind of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, except they're all animated. And it's very much about class and about xenophobia, but it's just this wonderful Disney movie, and it's got what do you call him, Jason? Oh God, from Arrested Development, as the sort of wise ass fox who teams up with a cop. It's like a criminal teams up with a cop, and they go and solve a case together. But it's in a world in which everyone's an animal. Like even Shakira, who provides the theme song, is an animal in it. It's a banging movie. I absolutely love the first one.
Brilliant. Well, we'll see what Van thought of that one next week on Off Screen. That is all we have time for this week. We will be back next week, of course. Until then, I've been Adam Ball.
I've been Van Connor. Keep it cinematic, and we shall return.
This podcast is part of the Mercury Network. To find your next favourite show, like mine, 5 Random Questions, visit mercurypodcast.com now.